Welcome, Wapham crew. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Saturday, October 23rd, Sunday, October 24th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you. And welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. We are live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight, and I'm hoping you guys had an awesome weekend. Thank you so much again for joining us right now on one of our many outlets, which is Spreaker.com. Under We Are Paradox Media. If you'd like to come into the chat room, you can make statements or ask questions or whatnot in the chat. It's really quick and simple to make an account. You can also find us live on KPNL Radio under kpnl-db.com. And if you'd like to find us on your free time, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Tumblr, YouTube, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, Podcast Addict, and Podcast Chaser. Make sure you follow, like us, and flick that little bell on YouTube under We Are Paradox Media. Also follow us and check out our posts on Facebook, Twitter, and pretty soon we'll be up on StreamYard. So tonight I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight we will be talking to and getting to know Mr. Troy Bacon. Troy is a lifelong contactee involved with a multi-species ET group, which he believes is here on a mission, helping to fulfill a positive agenda. In November of 2020, he had a walk-in experience, which turned his life around and upside down, setting him on a journey of challenges, healing, and learning through lessons. Tonight, he will share some of his stories of alien contact over the years, lessons he has learned from them, and discuss the walk-in phenomena and some of the greater implications and meanings of it. Welcome, Troy, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm super excited to have you back. It's been a long time.
Thank you for having me, Tessa. I'm excited to talk about this. So, I guess I'll hit the ground running. I should probably start from toward the beginning of where my contact really picked up, toward the end of 2018. Although I believe I'm a lifelong contactee, but when I was just out of college, I found the UFOI team, which was a group. It's not really meeting or operating anymore, but it was an exciting adventure in my life, and for a while I thought that was actually what I was set up for throughout schooling. And anyway, this group went on these camping outings, especially for UFO sky watching outings and that type of thing during the summers, especially. And
yeah,
so
you guys got a lot
August.
of really good evidence from what I saw. I was like, holy shnikes.
We did, especially in that one trip in August of 2018. And so I accompanied them like a month after I joined their group, and I went to Mount Adams, which I'd never heard of or been to before, actually, even though I've lived in Washington my whole life. And Mount Adams is a UFO and paranormal hotspot of Washington, and maybe one of the more busy ones in America too. And so I didn't even know what to expect other than hopefully seeing some lights in the skies if we were lucky. But then on the first night when we were sky watching, we didn't see lights in the skies, but the whole group, and I think I was closest to the source, toward the edge of the woods where we were at, we started hearing stick break and tree knock sounds, and that is characteristic of Sasquatch. And I listened to this for a couple hours when we were there. It was not an animal moving toward us or going away from us. It was staying in one location pretty much. I would estimate within 50 feet of where I was toward the edge of the Deus area we were at. And some of these stick break sounds were quite loud, and it sounded like large branches even being broken. Um, and I was just sending a telepathic thought, if it could hear me, that we were a peaceful group and that we meant no harm. So anyway, later that night, after not seeing a lot of activity in the sky, we migrated back to our campsite, started a campfire, and we were talking as a group for a while. Um, I was up late with a couple other women in the group until like 3 a.m. Just before 3 a.m., we disbanded. And at one point late in the night, myself and one of the others saw a tall figure, basically a silhouetted figure, pass between two trees, which there was a lot of bright moonlight shining through the trees that night. It was just a few nights after a full moon, and we saw a tall thing pretty much blot out the moonlight for a fraction of a second, and it was very silent and fast. I don't think we saw it after that, but we were watching that area, and that was also in an area that was uninhabited by campers. That was an empty camp spot at that night. It was the next day that another family came in and set up their camp. So it was pretty quiet after that, even dead silent in the woods, it seemed. And after we disbanded and put the fire out and went to bed, I laid my head down at one point, about to go to sleep, and I was prepared for a very quiet, restful sleep, hopefully, even though I normally don't sleep well the first night in a new place. But just like within a minute after I laid my head down, I started hearing noises, like rhythmic noises, and it was um, there was some other anomalies I'll talk about perhaps, but these noises were like, it sounded like heavy footsteps, but not just footsteps. It sounded like, if I had to envision it, a very, very heavy person rhythmically dancing, like stomping the balls of their feet into the ground. And it was just one after another, and it was like, it sounded like dancing to me. But I knew the sounds of the footsteps from my group and the people I was with, and they were not that loud. They did not sound like that. And as
And
far as
that's
I knew, they weren't
interesting too, because like earlier, wasn't Nikki like dancing around with some sort of I don't know if it's like a lace on a string or lace on a stick or whatever. I don't know what you call that. Wasn't she
yeah,
dancing around doing that? And it was kind of
yeah,
attracted to that?
streamer on a stick type of a thing.
Yeah.
That wasn't Nikki. Nikki wasn't there that trip, actually. That was another woman named Samara.
Oh, nice.
She has talked about this. But yeah, she was dancing around. But that was during the day. That wasn't at night.
Yeah, but
And
I
so she
wonder
was,
if like the Bigfoot like saw that and then I don't know, was trying to copy it or whatever. I don't know. I've
well,
never
that's
heard of a
actually a
dancing
good
Bigfoot.
question. I hadn't thought of that before. But the thing that I think happened was that it was doing a ceremonial type of dancing to create a spiritual or even piezoelectric effect. And the reason I think that is because when I was listening to this, I was laying with my eyes open, watching for flashlights passing by or shadows of people and or shadows of animals too, and I did not see anything, no lights, no shadows. It just was all very um, very still, it seemed. But what I did see above me is little rainbow sparkles of light, and that was within my tent, which I had never seen before. I didn't know what that was actually, but the best I can think of is that it was connected to whatever was dancing, which I suspect is a large Sasquatch, and I suspect it was creating some sort of an effect that put me in an altered state. because I did eventually fall asleep, but the next morning I woke up thinking I had just had a decent night's sleep. I was actually fairly well rested, and everything seemed to be in exactly the same place where I left it in my tent. Nothing was moved, nothing was tampered with. Um, so I had no reason to believe that anything major happened other than that weird noise that then I actually forgot about for a bit, even though the rest of the team was debriefing in the morning, and there was at least one other person with a strange dream, and then Dan Weiss, who is the director of Ambition Pictures, who was with us. Um, he was in his car with his son. They were sleeping there because they actually had a larger tent set up, but it ended up having holes in it when they set it up, and it became like a lake when it rained.
Oh,
So they
man.
decided to sleep in their car. Anyway,
Wasn't there
he
a thought that Michael actually got abducted that night because his CPAP had gone off and it was off for a certain amount of time, and he had gone out to go to the bathroom and then came back and it was like hours later. I think it was according to Kevin. I think Kevin said that.
Yeah,
Kevin Ian
Kevin was
Beagle.
there. I can talk about that, but with Dan Weiss, his windows were cracked down just so they wouldn't overheat for a bit. And then, like a few hours into the night, he woke up because it was getting cold. And then he turned the car on to turn the heat on just for a few minutes and warm the car up with the windows up. But his engine wouldn't start. And he turned the key, and this was actually before my Sasquatch dancing experience. So he turned the key to his car. His engine wouldn't start. It was only a 2-year-old Nissan at the time, fairly new. There shouldn't be any problems with it. And so the key wouldn't start. It was one of those cars with a computer panel in the dashboard, and the computer panel lit up, but there was no data on it, not even time and date, no words or letters where there should be something. And I heard him start his car, and then I thought it was odd at the time that someone was trying to start a car at our camp, like at 3 a.m. And then he stopped, and about a minute or two later, he tried to start it again. But the second time, he was not able to get it. Actually, was able to get it to start at one point, but it was a little while later. Anyway, something strange had happened with his engine. He eventually got his engine to start, and then it was working normally. And he was talking about the next morning. That was the main focus of our investigation that next day. And so that was like a big thing because there was lots of evidence. And um, at first we were talking about what happened. And yeah, there was the thing with Michael Hall, who was leader of the UFOI team. And at the time, he had a CPAP machine with him, but it needed to run on a battery or power source. And luckily, Kevin Ian Beagle had a few of these very large battery cells, like portable
Like a portable
battery
generator or
packs.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, not a generator. I don't know what to call it, but basically a portable power station. And so Mike was able to hook his CPAP machine up to one of these and sleep with his CPAP machine on, which was a lifesaver for him. And then he woke up in the middle of the night. It was a little after 3 a.m. He recalled like 3:15, I think. Um, and so he woke up because the CPAP machine wasn't working. It was making noise to alert him. And then he woke up Kevin, who said he would switch it to the other battery cell. And then Michael got up to go number one, and then Michael came back like a couple minutes later. Kevin was still working on switching it to the battery cell, and you would think that it doesn't take long to switch probably a basic plug-in cord to some other portable battery cell, but Kevin was still working on it. And then when Michael got back, he wasn't thinking much. He was still like almost half asleep, and so he asked what time it is again, and Kevin looked at his watch, and um, he said 4:30. I think it was 3:30 Michael left, and then 4:30 he came back. So there was Kevin looking at his watch. That was the original thing they remembered that sparked the hour missing time suspicion. But then after the trip, Michael looked at the computer memory of his CPAP machine, and that night that he apparently had missing time, he only slept for about an hour and 90 minutes as it
Oh,
recorded,
wow.
which is not a lot of sleep for one night, especially for an older guy. And so that was also corroborative evidence that there was missing time. And I think it was only an hour and 90 minutes up until 3:30 that Michael woke up. And then after that, I guess it didn't even record him sleeping for some reason, and maybe there was some other contact. Oh, the other bit of evidence that's interesting is that Michael has had one of those watches with the glow-in-the-dark dots around it.
Yeah.
And so that was in his sleeping bag. His arms were in his sleeping bag, according to him. And so for an hour and 90 minutes, that should be dark. Those dots normally go dark after about half an hour, according to him. And when he got up, when his CPAP machine wasn't working, then those darts were glowing as if they'd been exposed to daylight. And
Ooh,
so
that's crazy.
something apparently got him out of his sleeping bag, exposed him to bright light, put him back exactly how he should have been, so nothing seems to be out of the ordinary, and then he got up and his CPAP machine wasn't working at that moment, or was dying, or the battery cell was dying actually. So perhaps something was even there before 3:30. Um, so
And that's
that's another,
interesting because you guys said, you were with that group of women and you guys were up till about 3 in the morning or whatnot. And then you
yeah.
heard that noise shortly after.
Well, yeah, that's all interesting. I don't know for sure, but I suspect we may have had um, either we were contacted together or maybe even in separate sessions, like right around that time. Um, the 3 o'clock hour, by the way, a lot of people wake up around that time just randomly, and they don't really have an explanation why. And sometimes other strange things happen at around 3 a.m. UFO abductions and strange noises and you name it, all kinds of paranormal things. It's commonly known as the witching hour for a reason. So, yeah, we had this experience, and the next day was filled with our main investigation, which took up most of the day. It was quite boring, to be honest, for a lot of it, but also interesting after it happened.
Very monotonous until you get that awesome evidence.
Yes, because one thing we did was try to triangulate magnetic north from our campsite, and we did that with magnetic compasses. And so three of us stood at different corners of our campsite, quite a ways apart, and our compasses all were pointing in different directions. And I suspect that may have partly been done, or that might have partly been because Mount Adams may have a lot of magnetic iron in it from the volcanic activity, which we don't know for sure, but it's possible.
And I think like massive amounts of quartz as well can throw off compasses and such.
That's also possible. But what we figured out is that there was a magnetic anomaly within our campsite that was throwing off our compasses, and that seems to have been Dan Weiss's car itself, the car that would not start when you turned the key, and it was a 2-year-old Nissan.
So do you think
And
it was the car, or I've heard, when there are abductions, a lot of times all electronic activity will cease. So that makes a lot of sense as far as what happened to Michael's CPAP, and then Mr. Weiss is trying to start his vehicle. It won't work. So many different things kind of go along with that electronically. It's like they put out this, I don't know, beam or phase or whatever that knocks all that stuff out, so you're kind of helpless.
Yeah, that's possible. There's a couple of things I can talk about with that. It seems that Dan Weiss's car was magnetized because of all of our compasses would not behave normally. They would often spin or point in different directions, held up to his car. And what was concluded at the end was that his car had been turned into a bar magnet with magnetic north at one end and negative south at the other end.
That's crazy.
And he also reported later that he took his car to a Nissan dealership, and they reported that everything was physically fine, everything was working fine. Nothing should have been out of the ordinary doing that, except that the magnetism did not go away, and apparently it even got worse later. I don't know the current status of that car, but that is the last report I heard a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Sandra just said in the chat room, that's some camping trip. Who exactly picked the site where you guys were camping? Was it due to some happenings, or did somebody just say, hey, I feel like we should camp here? Or was it due to proximity to where you're doing your investigation that day?
Good question. That was Michael Hall who picked the campsite, and that's the Tuckluck Lake campsite near Mount Adams, just west of Mount Adams. It's a fairly large campground. I believe you have to pay per site, so you'd have to do that online normally, and there's a camp host there. So Michael was the one who picked the campsite. I think just because it was one of the more accessible ones near Mount Adams. But it was turned out to be just right for that occurrence and that event. Oh, and my phone was turned off that night, my iPhone, and I had a GoPro camera too. Both run on lithium-ion batteries. My phone the next day did not lose any battery overnight, but my GoPro battery was drained and dead. And so whatever did that may have been able to target one device and not the other, even though they were next to each other. So I don't know for sure, but that suggests there may not have been just an all-canceling magnetic field. It may have been something else more intelligent, perhaps. Maybe even Sasquatch did that as playfulness. It seems there may have been multiple Sasquatch watching us that night. Anyway, so we had this experience. At first, it was just evidence of high strangeness that was not normal. And then after we got back, we had another UFO IT meeting, recounted what happened. It was at that meeting that Nikki Jacobs, the most psychic woman on our team, was right in front of me when I was telling my experience with the dancing Sasquatch. And she randomly gets these psychic hits that are like a huge download of information when she gets them. Normally she has to be near a person or close to a person or something to get information about them, but not always. So she got this big hit when I was talking about my experience, and she apparently saw, like felt a lot of information and saw a vision of what happened. And it was, she hasn't even told me all of what she saw, but some of it she says may have been graphic, um, or a little bit scary also to get into
Yeah.
myself.
It's like when
But
somebody says that I don't want to tell you because, you might not want to know. Then I really, really want to know. What do you
yeah,
know, Nikki?
I'm kind of curious. Maybe I could ask her again sometime because it's been a while. But she said
Maybe it's
we
kind of
went,
settled for her and she'll be willing to share it now, hopefully.
oh yeah, things are different now. But she said we went up, and she said there were six of us who went up, and there was, I think maybe seven people in our group that camping trip, which means six out of seven or so went up, other than Dan Weiss and his son, not counting them. We don't know about them. It's very possible, though. They may have taken his car, too. Um,
Well, or like,
that's,
you hear of people getting elevated from their bed and through the roof of their houses. Perhaps that could have happened to them, and maybe they were the first of everyone because of the fact that his car was such a magnetic anomaly, and that's where like everything kind of started with the power going out and everything. I don't know.
it's possible. We don't know, but I've heard of people who reported seeing either a car or their car get taken up into a spaceship and then also be set back down or end up in their car again. But quite often, when that happens, sometimes it ends up just fine and they put it back down and it's working fine. But sometimes the circuit boards are switched around like a mirror image of what it should be. Sometimes some circuitry gets switched up or possibly fried. We don't know. It probably depends on the ship and the technology there. So yeah, according to Nikki, there were six of us who went up. We haven't all talked about this in depth. Not all of us are in touch anymore. But
I know that's strange.
I,
That happened with me too. Like, where is everybody?
yeah, one thing that I don't remember is actually seeing other people on the ships that I was in, which I could talk about later. At least not other people from my group. So it was after that that memories started to surface, and at least for me, and the first one was what I call the whiteboard, which was a lot like a white ceramic looking board. At least it looked like some sort of ceramic crystalline material in my memory. But it looks like it could sink down into the floor and then rise up again when they need it. And what I recall from this whiteboard is when I was there being allowed to interface with it, and it's similar to holographic touchscreen technology, but also telepathic. It's a living technology. And it had seven um, hexagons on it, like a honeycomb. And these hexagons were tiles, basically. And each one would connect to a different, I believe, what are pyramids that they have under the surface of the earth on different parts of the planet that they brought with them. And so it's like an interface or a telecommunication system, basically. And so I'll talk about their mission later and the purpose of that too. But I ended up recalling the sphere ship, which, from my memory, I believe is mostly black on the outside. It looks like it has concentric rings or layers to it. Not quite like the Death Star, but a sphere with layers, basically. Um, and each layer might even have lights that circulate around it, and that's just based off of a dream memory I have too that I can talk about later. But inside of the sphere ship, what I remember distinctly was within this room with the whiteboard is the control center. It's very stark, very clean. I think like a dark navy bluish color around most of it. Very large and round, similar to the command center in the Death Star. And I remember looking out these big circular or rounded windows, looking out at the expanse of space with blackness everywhere and little points of light as the other stars. And I also saw a little planet, a blue planet that had an illuminated crescent visible from where we were, and then a moon behind the dark side of the planet that there's also an illuminated crescent around the white moon. And from my memory, based on where that would line up with the sunlight on it, that should correspond with the timing of when I would have been taken off planet that night. And so not only is that interesting if I have that correct, but it's just a beautiful memory to remember being out in space. And even when I was in high school and I started to get into ET and extraterrestrial stuff and learn about star seeds and these star people who would interact with people, and not only alien abductions, but I also learned about some like more benevolent contacts. And so at one point, I just had a longing to be in space again, and it wasn't a desire based on what I heard, but it was a longing to go back there again, like I'd been there. And I've definitely been out there earlier in childhood, I believe.
Yeah,
So,
you like felt some comfort and peace and belonging, like you had been there before. You weren't afraid. You felt...
I was not afraid, to be honest. At least from my memories, I was not afraid when I was on the ship. I was in an altered state. They put me in an altered state, and I believe they had... the Sasquatch had actually helped with inducing that at first, and they brought my physical body up. What boggles my mind is how they can bring a physical body up, phase it through walls or whatever matter is around it, and take it up on a spaceship, and then bring it back down, put it back where it was exactly, and place it precisely where it was, how it went to sleep, basically, so it looks like they didn't even move or nothing happened. And I don't know how they can do that unless they're masters at tucking us in bed, which who knows.
They got this shit down. They've been doing this for millions of years.
They literally have, though. But it's still... Yeah, and still, Earth humans are also still a very low-tech species. At least the technology that we've been allowed to harness has been low-tech so far.
And I
So
think I was muted when I said that, so I said to Troy that this has been happening for millions of years, so it's nothing new for them, but it is for us. Okay, continue, sorry. I just had to tell them what you were agreeing with or whatnot. They're like, what?
Yeah.
What is he saying? Yeah, they have. All right, continue. I'm sorry.
Okay. Where was I? I'm trying to figure out where to go next with this story. Okay, so I was taken up. What I remember is actually, I've recalled memories that felt very physical of somehow waking up, and actually, I didn't even put my boots on. They were outside of my tent. I woke up, but I remember that I sat up and got up and floated or phased through the walls of my tent. And then it was like I was levitating just above the ground, and I saw this like 8 foot tall black haired Sasquatch next to my tent. And that was the one I assume who was dancing. He said he's a sentinel or something along those lines, and he would help facilitate that experience. Um, I didn't hear this exact same thing from others, but I wouldn't be surprised if there were other Sasquatch helping other people with this. And so then I remember floating over the paved road nearby and looking up, and there was a black triangle above the road. But what I don't remember is going up. What I remember is just being under it, looking up at it. I don't think I was nervous. I was just looking at it like I had already known what to do. And then the next thing I know, I was inside of it. And inside of it is very well lit. Um, I could describe the light as sort of like a bright, almost slightly golden lighting, but there are no light sources. It's like the light is just emanating from the walls and floor and ceiling.
But
And
you don't
so
see where it's coming from, it's just there.
no, I get the sense it's just coming from the walls, and also the walls are fairly blank and stark.
Mm-hmm.
But inside of this triangle ship, I think they have like a few chairs for human type bodies and something like that. But what I remember is that if they needed a tool or something, then they could literally just connect with the ship, which was also a living technology being, and it's like seams would appear, and then a tool or maybe food or something else could also come out of the wall, and then they could just grab it as they needed, and it's truly an otherworldly technology when you really remember something like that. It's not from this world, but it's amazing. And so I recall that our transport to the sphere ship was very quick. And then when we got to the sphere ship, I think we entered through the bottom of it. At least that's the sense I get. And then when we got off the triangle, I think there was a ramp, if I recall. And then also on the sphere ship was a 7 foot tall praying mantis being who
I love praying
welcomed me.
mantis.
Yeah, they're very beautiful beings, I think, when
They're like my
you look at
favorite.
them.
Yeah.
They look very intelligent, like they're thinking a lot and watching us, and they are because their eyes actually don't have pupils. Their eyes are a lot like a fly's eyes or their insect eyes.
That's weird to me because,
And
okay, so I remember looking into the eyes of this little praying mantis that when I was in combat training in the Marine Corps, climbed up on my leg and was sitting there on my knee and doing this and just looking at me, weaving back and forth with its arms in front of it, looking at me. And I remember looking into its little bitty eyebulbs and seeing a little spot on the whole sphere of it. Maybe that's just a main focal thing.
and
Maybe it's not a pupil. Maybe it's something else completely. But it looked
so
like it had pupils.
do you want to know what that is biologically?
What is it?
It's what is it? I want to call it a filament or
It's like
like a
the lens.
yeah, fiber optic type lens. It's like the end of a fiber optic,
It's
and
like the
so
camera
it
portion, and then it
has
goes through all these other spheres.
yeah, it has hundreds of those little fiber optics all over its eyes, and praying mantises can see pretty much in all directions, all around them, all the time. And who knows, maybe one of these giant praying mantis aliens, they have such amazing vision around them all the time, but their eyes aren't made like ours with little like lenses with circular pupils and um, limited vision. Their eyes might even see far beyond our visible color spectrum. And so, who knows? Maybe they can even see multiple dimensions all at the same time. And who knows what
Wouldn't
that could
that be
do to a
crazy?
brain?
Yeah, and I
Yeah, that
feel
would,
like it's a bug, but to me it's not a bug. To me it seemed like a very intelligent, different species.
yeah. So, one other thing, a technology thing I would like to touch on that I remember from the sphere ship that I've heard other contactees talk about, which I have reason to believe that the group I'm involved with may be the same group as some other contactees I've heard from around the world. And it's an elevator after we got off the triangle. It's like a tube elevator that's um, against the wall. And this tube elevator has an open section in it, like a round open section. And what's going through this elevator constantly is not an elevator box or elevator car. It's like it looked greenish, kind of like an aqua greenish, gaseous, glowing light substance constantly flowing through it, so it can take us up and down as we need to different floors, I suppose. If this sphere ship does indeed have multiple levels, which is what I recall. Um, so how about let's talk about the purpose of this sphere ship and this group.
Well, I
What
was
I've
listening
recalled,
to like your experience, and I think threw you off because the praying mantis thing. You were talking about your experience, and then you saw this praying mantis individual, and then we kind of went off on that hoopla. But what exactly happened in your abduction that you remember after seeing this praying mantis individual?
so I don't have a lot of specific details from the triangle, other than one other odd thing about the triangle is that there aren't windows, but you can telepathically connect with this living ship and also be able to see what is outside of it as it's moving, even though there aren't windows. So that's quite incredible too.
Yeah, I had another person on here say when they got abducted, they call it orb abducted because they saw an orb before they were abducted. But it was like you're in a room, but there's no windows. It's just open, but you can still breathe and everything. It's sort of like a force field or whatever over this certain room. But it's like just
Hmm.
looking out into the immensity of the universe. You know, it was pretty intriguing. No glass, nothing like that, but
That sounds similar to the blue spheres that Corey Good has been transported by, that can be microscopic, or they can be large enough to encapsulate a person, or they can even be the size of a planet, and it doesn't matter to these spheres because they're sphere beings and not human beings. Um, I haven't had that experience, but yeah, that's interesting you bring that up. I think that's a different, like a whole other higher level of technology there. So yeah, I don't remember other people in the sphere ship. Maybe there were, but I just don't have that memory
do you
right
remember what
now.
the aliens look like? Because I know you talked about the Sasquatch and the praying mantis. What did the others look like? Do you remember or no? Because that's kind of blocked due to what they've kind of done to you.
Um, what I've learned is that it's not so much their blocks in our memory that they placed, it's the blockage mechanism that our subconscious minds, uh, it's like a, it's kind of like when you fall and scrape your knee, and then it bleeds a little bit, and then there's a scab that forms over it, and then you just have a scab there, and then it heals, and then the scab falls off, and it's back to normal. But with the subconscious mind, what I've learned is that it's more like when you go through a traumatic experience, and this can happen with more than just abductions, it can happen with trauma from other people even. It's quite common. But the subconscious mind has its own protective mechanism that puts these barriers around memories that we're not consciously ready to be aware of yet. But sometimes these memories surface as we enter perhaps deep states of hypnosis, or also as we're healing ourselves and growing as individuals. Memories can surface that way naturally when we're ready. I can touch more on that later. But yeah, I just don't have memory of myself interacting with humans on the triangle. But what I remember is this praying mantis being who was actually, I hadn't met him before, but I had met another praying mantis being telepathically before the sphere ship arrived. And I'll talk about her more later, but what I remember is getting off of this triangle with this praying mantis, and we met another praying mantis and another gray. I think it was just two of them. So there's like a praying mantis couple, and there's at least one gray that met us. Maybe there were more, but that's pretty much what I recall. So I traveled however they travel, probably walking in their own modes. But we walked up this ramp from where the triangle was to the elevator, and I don't even know how a 7-foot tall praying mantis fits into that tiny tube elevator. I don't think it's made for them, but yeah, maybe they have a different way of...
Maybe they, kind of phase out, beam me up, Scotty. You go into particles and it just sucks you up and then recollects you.
That's very possible too. You never know. These praying mantis beings that I met are very, very highly evolved, so they're not just physical things. They're also something else, and they might be able to just phase through walls. But this one other taller praying mantis, I think she's about 8 or 9 feet tall. The female, her name is Cartana. She's the one who was my main chaperone on this ship, and I think I just saw her when I got off the triangle, but what I remember is the feeling of being on this ship, but I was never completely alone on the ship. I was always accompanied by a taller being behind me, but I didn't turn around and see them because I just knew they were there. But I'm pretty sure that was Cartana, the taller praying mantis being. What's next?
Okay, so this all originated with your guys' expedition with the UFO I-Team. And we're talking about, different people being abducted, and you were telling us about your experience. Did you hear stories from the rest of the team as far as what their experiences were?
I did not so much, although I think that's because the rest of them didn't dive so deeply into their subconscious memories and recall all this. Some of them may remember things they just haven't talked about. I'll have to reconvene as a group at some point, maybe later this year, and ask some people more about that and see if they've come up with more.
And we've talked about hypnosis as far as tinnitus and social anxiety, so on and so forth. Have you thought about doing a regression? Even though you do have a lot of memories, do you wish to know more and perhaps do some sort of hypnosis for regression as far as your abduction went, or abductions in the past even?
I probably will, and I do plan to do some more. There's another memory I'm thinking of that perhaps I should revisit soon. I don't actually know a lot about it, but what I remember is being in a room. It's like a surgical room, very, very well lit, but there are no light sources, just as on the sphere ship or on the triangle ship. And so in this room, it's like, I think there were two surgical type tables, but they were more than just metal tables. What they were is they could flex as a different type of metal and become recliners, basically. And so what I remember at one point is seeing Michael Hall. I think he was mostly upright in a seated position in one of these chairs, and I don't remember exactly what they did. This must have been when they implanted him with nanites. I'm pretty sure it was
Oh man,
nanites.
that goes into the blood system?
Well, I'm pretty sure it went into one place, not just the blood, but like they conglomerated into one thing that helped him with his surgery later, but that fringes on more personal medical things. I don't want to
Yeah, that's
awesome
right though, that it actually helped with the surgery instead of being something worse, you know?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Now, there are two things regarding that. After Michael came back from the camping trip, he noticed on his left wrist, near his watch, that he had three little dots that were in a triangle formation. And it wasn't like a large area, but he took a picture of it, and they also corresponded with hair follicles, oddly enough. But they were distinct dots that weren't anywhere else on his body. And so they must have had some little thing that injected or did something with these little triangle dots.
Yeah, I think he might have noticed it because it was an irritant. Maybe he kept rubbing it or something and then noticed that these follicles were more agitated or more abrupt than the other ones.
Yeah, and the other piece of that puzzle is something I remembered after we came back and I was sitting in the sunshine outside meditating on my own. And it was just a few days after I got back, as I recall. And I knew that strange things had happened and that something definitely happened, but I didn't know what. So I was asking my subconscious. I didn't even know hypnosis or self-hypnosis at the time, but I just asked my body basically that if there was some alien contact or something happened, that I want to know what, and know what nature it is. And I didn't get a lot except one very powerful vision that came through as a vision of what I call the three-pronged instrument, three-pronged needle instrument. And so what this is looks like a chrome metal electric toothbrush handle, essentially, if you can imagine that. But instead of a toothbrush on it, it has more like three long metal prongs. And on the ends of these three metal prongs are very thin needles. And so as soon as I remembered this, I had never seen anything quite like that on Earth. I know that. And I went into this memory asking what it is, and the only thing I got was a very sharp, cold electrical surge that went from my head to down to the base of my spine. I'm pretty sure it was from the instrument. It wasn't from me. It was something else. But it was like an interactive memory is how I would describe it. A memory that you recall, and then it can also come alive and interact with you and do something, which was quite scary at the time that I remembered that, but that's just what I remember. For myself, I did not end up with any marks from that trip. I did not end up with triangles or scratches
Or
or bruises. When I was a younger child, I'm not even clear on if this was just because I was a little bit clumsy at times and bumped into things, or maybe it was something else too, but I remember I would often have bruises appear on my legs especially. I think it was just that I was running into things accidentally and didn't remember it well. But it wasn't a big deal. So that's one thing. One of the grander purposes I would like to talk about of this sphere ship arrival, they actually contacted me in a vision in January of 2018, 8 months before the Mount Adams incident.
Well, on that note, Troy, we do have to go to our first musical break. So we'll leave off on the, what did you say again, the sphere when you were about 8 or so?
I can talk about one of my younger dream memories, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll come back.
And the grander purpose.
Yes. I'm super stoked to hear it. I'm so enthralled and intrigued in this because I love to hear different stories about the aliens. I didn't start to have any experiences until 2012. My dad always talked about it, but I'd never experienced anything like that. It was all paranormal stuff. And then in 2012 is when it started for me. But yeah, it just intrigues me different people's experiences and what's actually going on, because there are so many questions there as far as the alien race or races and what they're doing here. Some are good, some are bad, I think. But we are going to go to our first musical break. On this one, we have Cockroach from the UK with ICU. Then we have Miss Mia Savage with Your Skeleton. Fireline Kiss, who is an on-road trucker. He travels around with his 2 little doggies and writes some awesome music. And then we have Fred Johnson III from Canyon County, California with Sugar. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
this cold, lonely night without you. The tension's overbearing. Wondering, are you coming back home again? To inspire fondness with love. Where did our love go wrong? My sugar. Why did I make you cry? Whispers flow through my mind when I think about you. That warm feeling in me. My heart sings a sad song and just melts away. Please look into my eyes, my sugar. There's life in out there. Until the sun doesn't shine anymore, I'll be there. When time is a memory, I'll know this love. You will always be the one, my sugar. The feeling is so strong. Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. Where did our love go wrong, my sugar?
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are joined tonight by Mr. Troy Bacon. And I'm sitting here trying to answer a call, and my Skype is not working. It's just like, okay, why do I even pay for this service? But they're calling back again, so let's see if I can get the arrow to turn into a phalange finger. It went away. Rockwood, Ontario, Canada. Well, welcome back, Troy. Sorry about the whole craziness with this phone system. I'm going to try to add them on here with us because I really want to hear what they have to say.
Okay.
So we were talking about the sphere and different things like that. You were talking about your childhood memory that you had, perhaps a dream or a memory.
Yeah, I have mentioned that on air before. I suppose I can talk about that and then proceed with other grand purpose issues around this group. So in early 2019, I think it was around March of 2019, a memory started to surface, a memory of a dream that I had when I was a lot younger, I recall around 7 or 8 years old. But in this dream, it was in the house I grew up in originally. It was like already 100 years old when I was growing up there. So pretty old house. And in the dream, I was in the upstairs bathroom looking out the window in the backyard, and there were some trees on the side of the fence, just beyond the edge of the backyard. And beyond these trees, I saw a large black sphere. I just knew it was a spaceship when I saw it come emerging out from behind the trees and then just float. It was like it was hovering in the sky. I'm pretty sure it was aware of me, but as soon as I saw this and I saw I was just there and even getting a little bit closer, I knew, I just had a gut instinct in the dream that it was, somehow I just knew what it was, but I was terrified of it as a child in the dream. And I knew that something or someone was coming to get me, even though all I saw in the dream was this big black sphere. But the sphere was a big black sphere with multiple levels on it, and each level had a different type of lights circling around it. And they were many different colors, so it was really quite pretty to look at, but somehow I was just terrified of it. So I went running through the house in the dream and ended up hiding in one of the side loader dishwashers or washing machines. And I tried to pull the door closed, and somehow as a child, I thought that I'd be safe in there, even though now I know that even if they were coming to get me in that way, that they would just float walls and grab me through the machine, even if it was closed. Oh well, but that was a dream that surfaced as I was learning more and more about this ED stuff in early 2019. And it just that, like when I revisited that in self-hypnosis, my heart started beating rapidly, much more rapidly than normal. And it was definitely from pure fear and adrenaline. So there was something about that dream that was significant that came up at that time for me to remember.
Uh-oh, I just lost you. I can't hear you anymore. Can you hear me? For some reason, I can't hear you. Hold on a second. Okay, yes, you're back. Something happened.
Okay.
That was weird. Oh, you're back, though. Let's continue.
Okay, so there was something from that dream that I needed to remember, and it led me to the awareness that I've been a contactee since childhood, if not possibly since birth or before. Although growing up as a teenager, I became aware that I'm a starseed. When I was in high school...
I just wanted to ask you this question. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let him finish and then go on with your question, Dennis. Continue, Troy. Sorry.
When I was in high school, I had started to get into a lot of New Age and spiritual topics, and I started to get into the starseed and past life topic. And at one point, I got a past life regression, and I did not expect this, but it was like I was actually living there, or viewing it very clearly. But I remembered a past life of mine on a different planet, in the Pleiades constellation, and what I've remembered so far is that this planet is orbiting Alcyone. Anyway, I was a blue-skinned Pleiadian, so that led me to the awareness that I've been a Pleiadian. And so what I have remembered, I'll talk about more later as it relates to other past lives I've remembered. And it also, I believe, bleeds through with this multi-species group. quite interesting, convoluted stuff. How about I dive into the walk-in phenomena?
Well,
Unless-
we do have a caller. We have
Yeah.
Mr. Dennis Dyke
Yeah.
on. Dennis, did you
Okay.
have a question?
Yes, I Tessa.
Hey,
I do.
Rumi.
Good
So good to
questions.
hear your voice.
Well, thank you. Yours as well. But Troy, yeah. Walk-ins. This is very interesting because people mentioned to me that I'm a walk-in. Now, Starseed. Okay.
Are you like
touched on
Christopher Walken or a different Walken?
that.
Sorry.
A walk-in where that yeah an
Sorry.
interdimensional being just takes my body and they hang out.
Oh, wow.
Not quite sure. But the Starseed, yeah. But the way showers. This is one thing I wanted to ask you. Yeah, what are they to you, way showers? Like, have you heard? You've heard of this term before, way shower?
I have
Yes,
to,
I have.
yeah.
Yes. Right. What's your feelings on this? This is my question to you. That's all. Then I'll leave. Okay.
Yeah, I can talk about way showers specifically. I don't know a lot about them, but one of my older intergenerational friends have been friends with for a long time, really since lifetimes ago. She was a way shower to me, especially when I was starting to get into my spiritual awakening. And so we're both definitely star seeds, and there's lots of labels we can put on ourselves and others. But a way shower basically
Well,
is...
everybody puts a label on.
Yeah, from what I understand, a way shower may be largely from one of the earlier waves of volunteers, as I've come to know them. That's from multiple sources, not just Dolores Cannon, by the way. Anyway, way showers are one of the earlier generations who came here to awaken themselves and learn a lot of wisdom, and then they'd be ready to show the way to younger generations of starseeds and walk-ins and crystal children, indigo children, and other types as they come in.
Okay. Cool. No, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, is that all, Dennis? Like, if you had anything else, feel free to ask.
Well,
we've got plenty of time.
More than likely I do.
Well,
I don't want to interrupt the gentleman.
No, I'm
Go
so
ahead.
happy that you called in. I really am. So grateful.
Yeah. Because I get a lot of references as me being one of these things.
Yeah, well, don't listen to the peanut gallery. Just do what you do. Come on, let's go. Let's hear about it.
I know. There's no label for me. I just do what I do. Okay.
Well, Dennis, I have one question for you.
Sure.
Do you get any messages that are from non-human sources?
Always. I believe I do. Always.
He certainly does.
So, that's good. So, what I would suggest is to just listen to those. Now, you may still be able to get some insight from other human sources, especially on the more psychic and awakened types, but just listen to the non-human sources and listen to your inner knowing and how it all resonates. And also, especially when you start to get one message after another, either from one being or multiple beings that then line up and corroborate each other, then that what you should listen to.
Troy,
I recommend.
They inundate me with information, right? And they respect how much information I can absorb, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I like to do when I can turn myself off of that time is where that I get an opportunity to ask like humans like yourself and Tessa, and peoples, right, that I know, and ask them their experiences in regards to these connections that they have with the ethereal or etheric or whatnot, whatever you want to call it.
Ethereal.
And
Etherealers.
the etherealists.
No,
I
ethereal.
don't know what we are.
Etherealers. I don't know. We can just,
Etherealers.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah. So it's always interesting because we always have, each individual has a different manner in which they connect, per se, to that information, right? That is really not physical, of course, and it's energy, right? It's like you got to read energy, right? Which is very difficult, I find. And yeah, your opinion on that? Because I really love talking with humans and their experiences, especially like you, Troy, and Tessa. You know, Tessa's an awesome woman. You know, she does her thing. But yes, Troy.
Yeah, no, I beat to, the rhythm of my own drum. Sometimes it's hard for other people to keep up.
The first time, Troy? I didn't want to make this an interview, Tessa. All right, Troy. What's the first paranormal experience that you encountered? Oh, you might have went over this before, like dozens, thousands of times.
My first paranormal experience?
Yeah.
You want to know my first paranormal experience, or one of them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a tricky one
time.
because there may be some that are debatable about what they actually were when I was younger.
Right.
But after my spiritual awakening started and I really started seeking and talking to people, one of the more profound experiences that I ended up, gosh, this is hard to talk about, but I'll touch on it. I'll say that it's a demonic experience, or an experience with a demon.
Got it.
And
Understood.
It was a demonic possession type of a thing with an ex-girlfriend who's no longer with us. And so I didn't know about this at the time, but it just came out, and then started trying to kill one of her friends. And so I was thrown into this just randomly, and I was like being thrown into the ocean, learning to swim. And so I had then been praying to God or angels and spirit guides, and I didn't really get a clear message, but whoever would listen, and I was just telepathically screaming for help, basically, at this time. And so, long story short, I was able to get rid of
got
this
a message back, though, right?
later. And so then it was after that I was able to learn more about demons and how to suppress some of them, and how to fight them is what I learned later. Really, the fighting I wouldn't call fighting in the way that other people do astrally, but it's more like...
You just kind of have to learn to be numb. Don't fear them. Get all of those negative energies away, because if you have those, it will feed them. I don't know. You kind of have to numb yourself down instead of dumb yourself down. Numb yourself down.
I was talking about this last night.
The trick is, sorry.
Yeah. I'll just say that I was talking about this paranormal defense topic last night with Sufan, Seattle UFO Network, and one thing I did not talk about for any viewers who were also listening to that, perhaps, is a type of magic, or a book of magic, that I have a translated copy of, that comes from one of my genetic bloodlines, centuries-old German system, which is not evil at all. It's actually, a lot of it's very holy and good, but it basically utilizes the energy of the Holy Bible, some secrets in that for healing and
question for you, Troy.
vanishing. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, it's the stronger, the higher vibration. I feel the higher vibration you hold with being a human, the more you attract, the bigger
Yes.
trophy you become, right? For the dark side, right? You know, and then
Yeah,
they
when you
go
start to
after
get
your,
true
your
in
friends and
direction,
stuff.
they get
Yeah,
pissed off. They're just like,
yeah,
let's go feed
Yes.
on this person.
yeah. They just want to come at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yes, that's
So
actually that's very
so
true.
yeah,
One thing I
and
can.
it's like they come. Mhm.
Do you have more to
Oh,
say
sorry,
on
go ahead.
that?
Well, no, it's just. Well, for me, it's just they come to me in my dreams, right? Because they can't touch me like in real life, right? Because I already get them, right? I see them, and like negative energies, like you call them shapeshifters, doppelgangers, or whatnot, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
hidden demons that are physical on this plane, right?
Mm-hmm.
This here and now in space, time and space that we share. But they try to get me in my dreams, right?
Okay.
And yeah, and being fine. Yeah, I really don't think that they like people being so conscious, like when I'm dreaming, because it's hard to pick them out because they do shapeshift. Well, my experience anyway, and they try to deceive, of course, right? And they don't like it when they're spotted and they're found out. Like, I wanted to ask you, Troy. Okay, that was just to mention. But when's the last time you had a nightmare, like a bad dream? Like bad dreams are never.
Nightmares actually aren't common for me anymore. I know I had one like about a few weeks ago. I don't recall off the top of my head what it was for. One of the more profound dreams I had recently that still sticks with me that I'm learning from, it was a dream where I knew I was going to die the next day. So I was making amends with people and thinking about how I want to impress on people in my last day. And that is a powerful lesson by itself. What I've learned is to live each day as if I'm going to die the next day and as if it could be
were
my
your
last day on Earth. So that I don't have any shame, no regrets, that I enjoy the people I'm with and enjoy being around people and make sure that people remember me well.
That's
one
goodness.
Dennis, one thing I would like to talk
so the
about.
bad dream didn't. Yes.
I could talk about this too after you're done. It relates to inner strengthening and how we attract other beings or repel other beings that way too.
Well, I had something to say about nightmares. As a kid, I used to have a reoccurring nightmare of falling, and then also, a shadow man chasing me down, and I used to fall and fall and fall, and it was so excruciating because I'd always get caught. But eventually I learned how to get away and leap and bound and go underwater, and I could breathe, and it kind of gave me a lesson on astral travel. I've only accidentally done that a couple times, and I didn't know how to do it. I was trying to manipulate my physical body. Okay, son, hold on. But I can't. It's your dream realm that you have to do that. It's your dream body.
I know. You gotta
spiritual body.
Yourself because you're right. Because I breathe underwater. I've done falling dreams, right? And I'd wait. So I was like, wait.
Sorry, my son's dog Blue got out.
So, that's okay. That's okay. But I'll have these falling dreams too, right?
Yeah, I hate
dreams,
them.
Flying dreams are awesome.
Yes, I can fly now. I know how to fly.
Dreams?
Not fly for a long time, but kind of leap and bound and fly. For a distance, at least. Eventually, I'll be able to fly forever.
Well, I had these falling dreams, right? and I'd wait, like sometimes, like most of the time when I first started getting them, I'd wake up, right? Because I don't want to see myself killed. Yeah, and I said, on occasion, I'd say, yeah, this is a dream, and it's hard to differentiate, right? And at times, for me, and I just fall into the concrete, and like I just walk,
Right on the crack.
and yeah, like, oh yeah, right on the crack.
That's what happened to me.
You step on the crack.
No, I used to do that too. Step on the crack, you'll break your mother's back. But in my dream, okay, so I'm up there on a beam and I'm doing like my balancing thing because I'm an adventurer, and before parkour was cool, I was doing parkour. But all of a sudden, I realized instead of the grass and the ground being underneath me, it was clouds. And I was on an iron beam being held up by a crane, and I wasn't afraid until the wind gust came and it blew me and it knocked me off my feet, and I'm hugging the iron beam, and then I'm looking down and I'm seeing tops of buildings. I'm seeing little tiny people, little tiny cars. And then I got up again. I'm trying to walk to the end of the beam, and I fall, and I fall and fall and fall, and I can see like every layer of the building, everything, like every cloud I went through. People are getting bigger, cars are getting bigger, I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the sidewalk. The crack in the sidewalk is getting closer, and generally right before I hit the crack of the sidewalk, I wake up. But I just kept getting closer and closer and closer and closer until I finally hit that freaking crack or that seam in the sidewalk. So I hate falling. If there was a way that I could not die, it would be from falling, because that is my worst nightmare.
No, Tessa, but you gotta, okay, Tessa, when you're in that position, you gotta try to stay asleep, and you gotta say, I am here right now. Nothing can touch me, right? I cannot die here. Serious. And yeah, it's cool.
Oh, Sandra.
Yeah, dream one.
Do you remember what she said? She had a dream of jumping off a UFO and fell to Earth, but landed in front of a lake. So she had that astral presence to land and not be hurt. Eventually, like you said, if you keep going through that stasis of this dream, you eventually learn to land without being hurt. Because in your, reality's mind, you're going to hit that concrete, you're going to die. But in your astral mind, you can learn to, push against the gravity or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like life. It's like real life. Whatever life throws, you got to deal with it, right? And it's like a dream time, right? It's like, okay, when you have a bad dream, you wake up. But in real life, you can't. You got to deal with it. So that's when I go. That's when I go through. I'll go through the whole scenario in my dreams and see what happens. And then they get tired. They get tired of me. They say, "Oh God, what am I going to do with this guy?" Okay, we'll give him another lesson. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, they're like, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to talk about is the higher vibrational subject and how it attracts other beings. And this is going to take a few minutes. So towards the end of 2018, going into winter of 2019, I was doing a knowledge book program, and the knowledge book is basically the newest holy book of this planet, and I can confidently say that. It's the continuation of all the holy books. The Quran and the Bible are the last two, from my understanding, and the Torah way back when, before the Holy Bible came to be.
Well, for me, it's crazy because there's the Doctrine and Covenants, there's the Pearl of Great Price, and there's so many different scripts that are found all the time that I do believe relate back to the Holy Word and what we're meant to know. But yeah, continue.
Yes, and I believe that many of those were actually channeled from higher planes, channeled onto this earth.
Yeah, I believe that as well.
Essentially,
Indeed.
What the knowledge book is, it was written in 1984, and it's a 64 chapter book, quite dense though, and it's full of lots of different types of material. Some of it's very spiritual and higher concepts. Some of it's about extraterrestrials. Some of it's messages from ETs and on their ships, and some of it's messages about consciousness evolution in the universe and how that relates to whether or not a soul completes its evolution on Earth, or if it doesn't, then it might end up being sent to another planet where it lives as a cat, basically a feline being. Different kinds of odd stuff about the universe. And anyway, I was in this knowledge book program, and what this is a free program. It's all over the world, and they copy. What you do is copy chapter by chapter consecutively, writing out the knowledge book yourself. So you don't just read it; you go to these sessions, reading it out loud with other people.
Well, it's practicing.
And then
writing it down is like
not
helps
just
to memorize
memorizing,
in
but
bed.
there's a specific way you need to do it with fountain pen and ink, a fairly old, primitive way. And you have to do it supposedly in the same room or the same just very neutral space every single time. Anyway, I wasn't able to finish this program for different reasons. One of them is because starting out, I encountered a bunch of setbacks, which every one of them was unexpected, and it was like I was trying to do this to see if I could actually get the benefits of the book after writing it, but it was like there was something in my way, something that didn't want me to do this. I was talking about this with Nikki Jacobs at one point, and I was truly called to write the book. I really felt dedicated to it, but one thing after another would stop me from going there, or something would come up. And Nikki said that she senses that someone was trying to stop me because they didn't want me to write the book. And so I do truly believe that it is the next real holy book of this earth, and I will definitely finish writing that myself, or possibly with a group one day. Anyway, I'll finish that program at another time.
So is this book that you're going to write what you have learned from your extraterrestrial experiences, or what they've told you, what you've learned from them?
I may write about some of that with my own writing practice one day, but I mean,
I'm just wondering where this came from.
Oh, when I say write the knowledge book, I mean hand write it out, like the whole thing. It's like bigger than a dictionary, and I'm gonna do that someday.
But did it come from your experiences or messages you received?
So
where is this coming from?
That's what I'm getting to. So I was in this knowledge book program, and I didn't know this until later in 2019, but it seems that there was something on this world of a darker force that did not want me to write the book because it knew that it would actually help me in my consciousness evolution progress and healing. Yeah, and it would help other people too. And so later in 2019, I encountered a group of reptilians that are gone now, thank God. Basically what they were is iguana-headed reptilians, and they were actually not very smart or strong, and this gets convoluted and strange. I didn't see them, but my fiance was able to see them naturally, even in their cloaked form, and they would interfere with our phone line communications too. Like, neither one of our phones was having any issue actually, but it was the connection they were interfering with. They would create static and prevent us from talking, and they'd also make my computer malfunction when I was trying to play, like every single time I was trying to play relaxing music or some higher frequency audio, they would mess it up and stop it from working. And so there was something definitely doing this. It was not normal. It was not just a computer issue. And I figured out it was these reptilians, and they had a portal set up in Ravenna Park in Seattle, which I was living just north of at the time. And they had an underground base. I don't know where actually, but somewhere deep underground somewhere. It might have been under the Seattle area, possibly. But this base was basically the... What is it? There was a reptilian queen. I don't know exactly what she looked like, but I think it was from this a psychic I worked with and my own senses. But basically I got the impression that she was some sort of a giant reptile, like a giant iguana, and she was the one laying eggs. She came here hoping to lay these eggs. It was similar to one of those scenes in the Alien movies where they come across one of these gigantic rooms full of hundreds, if not thousands, of these alien eggs, and then they start hatching. And it was a lot like that, because every time we would kill off one of these reptilians, another would come back. Actually, two or more would come back in its place. And it's like the Hydra, when you cut off a head.
Kind of like the
more grow back.
Matrix.
It is. And so I'll talk about how we dealt with these reptilians. I can talk about her.
Troy, I will leave you at that. Thank you for
Okay.
answering my questions, sir.
Thanks for calling
You're
in,
welcome,
Dennis.
Dennis.
Thank you, Tessa, for having me.
Hopefully
you
I
for
see you at
coming
the
on.
after party.
We will. Let's see. Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, Dennis.
I'm listening, but thank you.
Yeah, you can keep listening. So,
Nighty night, love and light, Dennis.
this also relates to paranormal defense that I did not get to talk about last night that I wanted to cover for people
Okay.
who are listening. I can talk about her because she's deceased, but my ex-girlfriend, who at one point a demon in her I did get rid of with some more divine help, she became like a friend on the other side, spirit world. But she's actually not completely passed on. She can go back and forth, I think. She doesn't tell me everything about the spirit world either, but that's just how they are. But she also looks out for myself and my fiance, and she has warned us of some things that we didn't actually encounter, but that she helped stop, supposedly. But what she was able to help with is astrally fighting these reptilians. And the reason I said that they're actually not very intelligent or strong earlier is because they were all hatchlings, even though they were like full human-sized. They were not fully matured in whatever form they were going to be in. So she was able to astrally literally beat them up, and I won't go into the graphic details of that because it gets graphic. And when I say graphic, it's gross and weird. But she was able to tear apart these iguana-headed reptilians. And the way I was able to get rid of these reptilians, I'll talk about too. This also goes into more of the interstellar connection field I want to get into. But basically with the higher vibrational thing, I was doing that knowledge book program, and I think that actually attracted these lower vibrational beings who were trying to stop me. and I stopped them with an even higher vibrational being.
Well, yeah, and when you're on track, you get attacked. So did you experience that, being attacked because you were on track and you're about to put this out, not only to help you, but help other people? The other side that is dark does not like that, and they generally will attack you. Did you have that experience?
Yes. Essentially, they were lower density. Probably, they weren't fully astral beings. They had their own actual reptile bodies, but yeah, they were lower beings. And when higher natured beings, in a human form especially, who are already vulnerable in a human form, then start to do higher vibrational, higher density work on themselves and higher work on other people too, and improve themselves, then lower beings, if they're able to, this won't happen to everyone, but if they have the opportunity, they will take you down, and they will try, and they will tear you apart, they will interfere with things, and
they will destroy you.
Yeah, this is why it's not a good idea to just open yourself up spiritually to everything. You have to use discernment, and you have to protect yourself with shielding and with other techniques. And so I want to get into the way that I got rid of these reptilians.
So before we go there, Troy, we should go to our first music break, because I know this is going to take a little bit. Is that okay?
Okay.
All
yes,
right.
That's good. And then I'll explain the rest of this story and then get into walk-ins in the next hour.
Yes, sounds perfect. I can't wait. So on this break, we have Cockroach from the UK with We Play House. Then we have Miss Mia Savage from Phoenix, as well as Durango. She's kind of like a snowbird. She goes back and forth. She is going to sing Not a Phase. And then we have Fireline Kiss, who is an on-road trucker. So he's basically a nomad. And he's going to sing Angel. And then we have Mr. Fred Johnson III from Canyon County, California with After Dark. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
We Play House. We Play House.
apocalypse scene. I like to go and dance, have drinks, and hunt the perfect date. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, after dark, I gave her base because she had the range. I knew she was the one that never could go home again. Plastic lights by limo seats. I don't know why I can't control this urge to hurt again. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Changes in the sky, murder forever after. No matter what I say, after dark. Really meant to repugnant in me. Behind a place with days of December. Concerning works published in the mandate. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say, after dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say, shades in the sky, murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Rude and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say, after dark.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Mr. Troy Troom, who is a paranormal, UFO, and alien investigator. Welcome back, Troy, and thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your experiences and intelligence.
Thank you for having me, Tessa. I'm having fun, and we have quite an exciting hour coming up. I'll be talking about the
Indeed.
walk-in phenomena, more about the real purpose of that multi-species group I'm involved with, how they're connected, how I'm connected to them, and also I want to touch more on a little bit of paranormal defense, psychic defense, briefly, perhaps. So I'll get started. I have a lot to say. Where to start first? So I talked a lot about the multi-species group. By the way, there were 4 species in that group originally that contacted me telepathically throughout 2018, and they were mantis, gray, human, which is interstellar human, and reptilian. And that's not the bad reptilians, not the mean ones, but there is at least one group or a faction of reptilians now, and probably have been for a while, who are wanting to evolve, similar to how some humans are. Not all of them, but there are some out there, and they actually do want to be helpful and participate in the Galactic Federation, and I'll talk about the Galactic Federation later too. So that's the multi-species group, and for a while I didn't quite understand what they were and what their purpose is, and Then after some time, I think it was in 2019, I got, it wasn't a clear message, but an inkling from them that there's more than just 4 types in their group. And there, at that time, I was told there are up to 7 that are in this group that may be working sort of on its own agenda, but also in alignment with the Galactic Federation. And so the 7 types are mantis, gray, human, reptilian, amphibioid, basically fish or mer people, fish type, and what's the other one? Yeah, but interstellar can be literally anything. I'm talking about species. I'm blanking on the 7th type now. It might be just another insectoid. I'll think of it soon.
Oh,
But mantis is already insectoid.
cicadas? Cicadians?
No. I'll say when I think of it. But
Okay.
anyway, there's 7 of these types within this group apparently that is working for a somewhat specific purpose. And what I've gotten the conclusion of with them is that they are working in alignment with the Galactic Federation, which is an ancient federation of all star council and star types, all different types of species working for higher purposes and higher consciousness. And it's like a federation that moderates activity within the universe.
Yeah, they
in the way
moderate. You're
that-
not supposed to
Yeah,
interact or change course. But I
Yeah,
have
they're
seen
not-
things where they do change course. Did you see where that UFO destroyed that nuke?
Perhaps you could send me that video later. That's
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
That
And the asteroid,
That
too.
may-
There's been a couple
yeah, that
times
may
I've
not
seen them.
be Galactic Federation. It could be. Sometimes either Galactic Federation or some other group who cares about us will intervene if it means that it could be disastrous for humanity. Then they might change something. But otherwise, the true Galactic Federation councils don't intervene in our affairs because it's our responsibility to do our homework, to heal ourselves, to fix our planet, to clean up our messes, and evolve as a species to the point where not only will we eventually be able to have open contact with some of them, but also be able to become, let's say, ambassadors and basically be involved in interstellar affairs.
Yeah,
And
council
that-
members.
Exactly. There may be a few humans on Earth who are already on that path, but it will be a long, long time before the rest of humanity will be able to actually comprehend and accept that.
It's like, could you imagine being a council member of the whole galactic universe? Hoy vey.
Oh, that would be exciting. Quite
Yeah.
exciting. So the purpose of, or I'll talk about the mission of this multi-species group that came in 2018. I believe that they actually visited me at times earlier in my life, but they weren't there constantly. They just come and go as watchers, essentially, for people of their group. And one of their ships came back, the Sphere ship, in August of 2018 before I visited Mount Adams. And they had set up a base before I went to Mount Adams, under Mount Adams. That's one of the places they took me that I have memories of. And the base that I remember is within an empty volcanic formed cavern. And it's not huge, but it's kind of spacious. And there's a white pyramid in there, a glowing white pyramid. And that pyramid is one of the 7 devices that they brought with them that communicates directly to the whiteboard in the command center in the sphere ship.
Is that the same pyramid as is in Alaska? No, that would be a totally different one, I think. Perhaps.
Probably not, because that
two different
Alaskan
ones.
pyramid is ancient, from my understanding, like super ancient. This white pyramid is something different. The only
Newer?
thing that's similar to it, yeah, it's definitely newer. Now it may be something ancient, like within the cosmos from other planets. The only thing that I've read of from a contactee that's similar is pyramids of light that Alec Newald encountered, or was actually taken into. They're like libraries on a planet he was taken to when his gray alien group took him for 10 days off planet, and then he was actually gone for a while. It's recorded in the media and in his coevolution books. And so there's this group of grays that have this. They actually originated here, the group he talks about. I don't know if my group of grays that I'm connected with originated in this solar system, but some grays out there did originate in this solar system on the planet known as Maldak, which eventually exploded or was blown up, as I understand it, and destroyed the atmosphere of Mars with that explosion, and then half of the planet of
Is
Mars.
that what caused the fissure in the planet? I know there was a major attack. I think it was from above that was very astronomical that caused that fissure in the planet. Is that the same one, or that's totally different?
In Earth or another planet?
No, on Mars.
Oh, I'm not certain about that, but that could be part of it. What I know is that half of Mars is speckled with craters, and the other half mostly is not. And so that indicates that at one point it encountered a big blast of something, asteroids all at once, or perhaps fractions of a planet, little parts of a planet that exploded and became the asteroid belt. That's the narrative that I'm familiar with from multiple sources. And what this gray group, or this multi-species group, came here to do is these pyramids, they're not so much geomancy devices, but they are record keepers, as well as they can use them to, in real time, monitor the changes and things going on with the Earth, not only geologically and seismically, but also human consciousness and how human consciousness is evolving as a collective and as such. And so in 2018, it's actually early 2019 that I recalled this more of this pyramid base. But it was then that I also got a message from, like, coming out of a hypnosis session, something about the year 2021. And for a long time, I actually had thought that that message about 2021 was a prediction that our sun was going to basically burst with a mass ejection that would wipe out Earth's magnetic grids, and then that would likely just
Well, we
kill
had
90%
something
of
not too long
humanity.
ago that messed with all of our internets, our phones, all sort of other things. Yes, there was that point where Facebook crashed because there was about to be an investigation, so I think they were cleaning up everything. But otherwise, there was the crash of the cell phones and the internet and other different things in different portions of the country. And I want to call it Canada, as well as America, so far as I know. I think Australia was okay, but there's other places that were affected as well. Could be it, but it could be something else happening.
Tessa, do you happen to know, by the way, if Texas or Afghanistan was affected by that?
When I was in Texas, I barely got any sort of feed on my phone and stuff. There was a certain point where I did, and it was crazy. We had this storm, and then all of a sudden there was ice stones all over the road, basically hail, and different things happening. But yeah, I think, yes, Chris Garcia, he lives in Texas, and he had the same effect. So yes, it did happen in Texas too.
Okay, that's good to know. Texas probably isn't done insulating their grids, but last I heard, I think it was about a year ago, I heard that this is from David Adair. He's worked with NASA and other big things, but he says that Texas and Afghanistan are currently the only places on Earth actively working to insulate their grids, or that have a plan to, because they know that if Earth gets hit by a giant blast from the sun, which has happened before, such as the Carrington event, and could happen again, possibly even on a larger scale, then our grids will be wiped out. And so they're now taking wise measures to insulate electrical grids so that life can be sustained by people who rely on electricity, which most of us do these days.
Right?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true, but it is. Anyway, for a while, I thought that's what they were predicting about 2021.
I think it's something
really
bigger.
It's something different, and I think what they're predicting has to do more with human consciousness evolution, and possibly about my walk-in experience and preparing me for that, even though when they contacted me in 2018, even on their ship, I could not have comprehended becoming a walk-in or having a walk-in experience, and that's probably why I didn't remember that part of their message. That's just my greatest suspicion right now. Definitely 2021 has been quite a different year so far. So their purpose is to progress with evolution and disclosure. And they have 3 stages in their agenda that they told me about a while back, when I was asking about why they're here. And the 3 stages in their agenda are the first is propagation, which is both biological and intellectual on different levels, and spiritual, to propagate interstellar presence here. The second phase of their agenda is disclosure, and that's their word actually. And that's interesting to me because they don't care about government disclosure. They don't care about the minute goings-on of our stupid little government people, these stupid little humans on Earth. What their version of disclosure is personal disclosure. They don't care what the government tells us to believe or tells us what is real. They want people to have contact experiences, and that's what they have been working on, ramping up. More and more I see this, and it's still going on. It will progress. They're not going to contact people and harm them, from my understanding, at least not my group, especially Galactic Federation related. What their agenda may involve dream contact, which is generally very gentle. Dreams can manifest in different ways. But one thing to understand is when we enter our dream state, we enter the dimensional realms that most ETs function on, and so we enter their land too, and they can come and contact us in our dreams. Sometimes they contact us in dreams under disguises, so that when we wake up and remember them, then it's not so obvious. I've had dreams of one was, it was odd, it was years ago, but something about a man in a beige military outfit, but he was like, I'd talked to him briefly. He didn't want to talk much, but he was just also there, and So then even when I went to other places, he showed up and he was just, it was like he was watching me, but didn't actually do much or say much. And his presence wasn't like a normal human from what I remember in the dream. It was more like something else. And I got the feeling that it was an ET in disguise watching me. And I suspect it was one of the Greys I'm involved with. May have been something else, but they can do that. They can do that physically and consciously too. Of course, people report men in black and other types of people they see that look mostly human, but also behave and act differently and don't quite behave and talk like humans.
Do you think the men in black are Nordics because they're really tall, very pale,
Well,
blonde-haired individuals, and they all look the same, kind of sort of like the Matrix, like I said earlier? I don't know.
that is one thing that I have to say is a complicated subject because I think there are multiple types of men in black. One type is very human and physical, probably uses back engineered technology to moderate or try to moderate the affairs and actions of ETs on Earth as much as they can, especially the malevolent ones. There's probably a lot more to them than we understand, and they just watch UFO activity and contact people when there's UFO sightings. There's another type of men in black that I have encountered that I call more like ethereal men in black, but I don't know if ethereal is the right word because that's more of a ethereal is more of a pleasant word to me.
Mm-hmm.
These were more like they were either cloaked or they were just non-physical, and they were actually working in tandem with a gray who was a trickster. At first I thought they were related to my group, but then they turned out to be something else, and actually they were trying to take people to a base under Dulce, basically. I'll say that. Very nasty beings, and so I got rid of them, or actually it was my protective spirit team that got rid of them at the right time. So be careful who you...
Thank goodness for those guys.
Yeah, seriously, I'm thankful for them, and also be careful who you interact with because not all aliens are good, and you have to use discernment. Some of them pretend like they're on your team, and then they try to take your organs and take your heart and experiment with you in a very soulless way. So be sure to use spiritual protection too, which I can cover soon. We have half an hour left or less. So I'll get back into the purpose of this group. Actually, I should talk about my walk-in experience, which ties in. So it was right around November 11th, as my memory serves, of 2020, which spells out 11122 digitally when you write it out, or 111-2020 basically. It's an interesting date by itself, but it was after that date that a lot of things started to change in my life. Walk-in experiences can be powerful. They can be multi-level and multi-dimensional and not just consciousness and not just one thing. What walk-ins are is a fragment, either a whole soul or a fragment of a soul or a fragment of your oversoul that either comes to visit or comes to infuse or comes to exchange places
Wreak
with
havoc.
you. Well,
For me,
seems
that's
like
what it
havoc at
was.
first.
But, yeah.
You may have had lower beings which you need to be aware of, but walk-ins typically don't, they're not damaging, they're not harmful. Not everyone's a walk-in, not everyone can be a walk-in, typically starseeds. are walk-ins, or some people who awaken as walk-ins didn't even know they have a starseed or interstellar type of existence before. They thought they were just normal Earth humans, and they have an experience, and then they find out there's someone different. And so what happened with me is it was actually the day after I left my previous job, which didn't serve me well anyway, and that's fine. But I woke up, and for 3 weeks I had a horrible headache. I think it was migraine or something similar. I don't get headaches normally though, and it lasted for 3 weeks. It was hard to get rid of. So that was one symptom. Walk-ins can cause physical symptoms at first and physical changes. Another was that there were multiple days at first after this experience that I slept for 13 hours straight, which is not normal. For me, normally I sleep up to 9 or 10 at one time. But 13 is pretty much I'd never done before, especially multiple days in a row. And sometimes walk-ins need more sleep than usual to adjust at first. Also, what happened with me is I would look in the mirror, and at first it was like someone was looking back at me. It felt that way, and someone else, not me. So I knew who I am as an Earth human, but then it was like there was actually someone else inside of me, which freaked me out at first, but also was kind of intriguing. I had actually heard of the walk-in phenomena before this, and some of the symptoms. I was actually reading a book written by a walk-in, Jalila Starr. She wrote We Are the Nibiruans, the 12th Planet, and then the sequel is The Mission Remembered, which is quite interesting. I was reading that book when this happened, and so fortunately I had already started to read about the walk-in symptoms at the time, and then it clicked. Some walk-ins actually have physical facial changes. Like I've seen pictures of walk-ins online, like on social media that I've met, and they've showed me a picture of who they were before the walk-in experience, and it looks like a human, just a person. And then they showed another picture of what they're like now, and the face is definitely different. It looks like a sibling or a relative, but not quite the same person as before, which is quite amazing. I haven't had physical changes like that yet, except a little bit of white hair. I'm starting to grow a little bit of white hair on my head, which is not graying hair. I'm not old enough to have gray hair typically.
It's platinum.
Yeah, except this is on the front of my head, which I believe will only be a white streak, and it's not like a whole... it's not like a big thing. It's just... I think it's actually a genetic thing. Some other people have this a white streak, which in folklore I've learned is associated with mystical and witchy type of characters, such as villains in a lot of movies these days typically have a white streak, such as Sweeney Todd, Cruella de Vil, Rogue from the X-Men movies, and many more. It's not very common, but it happens. It's just a natural thing. And I was thinking about this today. It's actually a very natural thing in nature, because I saw a dog today that has many, many different colors on it. Browns and blacks and reds and other colors, and also white spots. And so there's definitely many creatures that naturally just have white hair, which is what it is. So back to walk-ins. I'll go back to how I awakened as a walk-in. It was unpleasant at first because I was going through seasonal affective disorder 2 in November, which is not pleasant. I'll try to hopefully not have such an extreme bout of that this year, if at all. I've learned a lot. But what a walk-in is a higher version of a person's self, or a higher being too. Some walk-ins are completely a different being. Some walk-ins actually lose their memories and have complete amnesia of who they were before and their families. I did not. I maintained 100% of my previous memory. Nothing was altered, really. And actually, this is a classic symptom of a walk-in. I was having a lot of dissociative moments, and I did not feel like myself. Here's one interesting, somewhat more romantic thing. So I'd been in a relationship for almost 7 years at that point when the walk-in experience happened, or 6 years, I should correct myself, at the time, which is a long time to be with someone, and we knew that we're right for each other. And so what happened in October before is I had a dream in which I was at the college I graduated from. I think it was in a library setting, but I was just talking with someone, presumably a student, and they had ended up mentioning to me that I'd been doing something for so many years, and they thought that perhaps it's time for me to move on and graduate. And in that dream, it was like they were suggesting I should graduate because I'd been in school for too many years, which I definitely don't want to redo. And so that happened, and it didn't quite make sense to me in that context at the time, but it put together, and then it was... I had started on this before the walk-in, actually, but then in December, which was actually on our 7-year anniversary, I proposed to my now fiance, and that was like a mission fulfilled, my first mission to fulfill.
That's one of the things I wanted to say tonight was congratulations. I just saw you
thank
announce you're engaged, you're going to be married, and it's almost a year. You guys have really been taking your time and doing it right, and so I'm pretty excited for this for you guys.
Yeah, we're excited. So that was my first mission, and I have wondered if that dream figure that talked to me and suggested I should graduate may have actually been my walk-in aspect, or maybe just a spirit to facilitate the process. Who knows? But that was my first mission, and I'd already started it before the walk-in experience, but after the walk-in experience, the difficult part of the mission was that I felt like a different person, and I knew that I should still be with her, and I still loved her, and that we were right for each other, and I didn't want to just call it off and throw away so many years together. But my heart also felt completely empty. It felt like there was a void where there should be something else, and that was the hard part. And I kept that a secret. I didn't actually tell her at first, and I don't know if she fully understands that, but that was the hard part, because I had to learn to love her pretty much all over again, even though I knew that I still should.
Well, and she had experiences too with like possession and different things like that going on as well, didn't she? With another alien race. So that made that difficult as well. Yes.
And we've learned a lot through possession and other types of experiences, and she doesn't have that so much anymore.
Well, I'm just so glad that, you guys both had those experiences. You both stuck together throughout that. So that is amazing, because a lot of people will just cut and run, and you'd be like, bye, Felicia. But, you guys stuck together.
Yeah. What I'll say about possession is that it's not so much of a walk-in type experience. A possession is more of a...
Yeah, it's more long run. I didn't mean to use that term. Yeah. It was a walk-in, not possession. I've had walk-ins, not possessions, because they're like within hours, not days or weeks or whatever. It's a short span of time. And like you said, your facial features, your voice, so many different things change. And that's what freaks me out. That's what to me like makes me say possession, which within the same right, it's not. It's just a walk-in. It's a temporary stasis, like a B&B, Airbnb.
Yeah, what I'll say about walk-ins generally, I'll classify the types of walk-ins. There's the soul exchange walk-in, which is like a complete swap out. One soul walks out, another walks in. This usually happens
It's like a Freaky
overnight
Friday.
during sleep, so you don't really know what happened at first. And then it's like the walk-in knows who they are, but they're living in a different body. And then they have the memories of that body and that life. Sometimes they have amnesia. Sometimes they forget their families even. It's so extreme in that exchange scenario that they don't remember their families and who they are. And then they have to ask the family members who they are, even their spouse and children, which is the strangest, hardest part for them. And then they have to look at photographs of previous moments, and sometimes they remember fragments of that. And yeah, what I was having is dissociative moments. It was actually months of this that I was dissociated, that I knew who I am as an earth person, or who I was, and I was also losing my purpose and trying to reevaluate my life and change my life at the time, but I didn't expect this to happen. Anyway, then memories would surface in my mind, sometimes random memories, sometimes significant memories. Anyway, things would come up in my mind, and I would view them similar to videos even, and it's like memory tapes, and I'd focus on the memory, but I know what happened with the people, and I know everything about it, but I also felt like I didn't associate with that memory, like it's someone else's memory. And that's very common with most walk-ins.
Yeah, it's not familiar, but I remember it. I can see it, but I don't feel it.
So there's the exchange walk-in. There's a jumper walk-in, which is maybe that's what you experienced, Tessa.
I think
sounds
so.
like it, because
he
what
jumped
a jumper
in.
walk-in is, it doesn't feel like a demonic or evil possession, but it's like something or someone else comes into you for a short time, sometimes hours, sometimes days or weeks, and then they leave.
Yeah, mine was hours, and he was very angry. He almost felt demonic because it changed my facial structure. My husband said my face changed, my voice changed, and the things that I said were not me. He was pissed off because I went up there and cleansed this house by myself. I should have taken someone with me, but it's right up the road. And, when I pulled up, I didn't sense anything. Generally, I do. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a big one. Didn't feel anything, felt perfectly comfortable. And then as soon as I took my pants off, which held the tourmaline and selenite and amethyst in it, that thing jumped into me, and it was ugly. Like, I woke up driving down the road, no clothes on, turned back around because I'm like, I just need to go back home. I need to go back home. Got back home. My husband and the kids were locked in the bedroom. So I picked up my pajamas that I meant to put on, but before I put them on, I was Outsville. And so I put my fuzzy jammies on, laid down, put the news on, went to sleep. And woke up, and my husband's like, are you okay? Like, he was not mad at me or angry. It wasn't like some, drunken, altered state. It was like a possession, but temporary. I called it a jump-in or a walk-in.
So did the jump-in aspect feel like it was harmful, or was it working for a higher purpose?
No. It was bad. It was very negative.
Okay.
There was coffee splatters where it threw a coffee down the hallway. There's
Okay,
marks on the door, other things like that. It was very, very negative.
to me that sounds more like a possession type of scenario and not an actual walk-in. What walk-ins are is they're usually of a starseed type nature, or some walk-ins are also from a higher dimensional plane, like an angelic realm, or just another part of your higher self, or
Yeah,
the
and you say that, but then
fragmented
other people would
oversoul.
say to one action there is an equal and opposite reaction. I don't think it was a possession because it made its point, it did the damage it needed to do, and then it went back up there to the place that I
Okay.
cleansed that day. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's intriguing, but I believe you. Perhaps you're
Yeah.
correct, but I'm just like
Walk
internally trying to
walk-in.
process this.
Another type of walk-in is a soul infusion. Back to the jumper walk-in briefly. Um, I've read other accounts of a jumper walk-in, and normally they don't throw things and they don't change much, but sometimes they just come in for a number of minutes or hours. Sometimes the person remembers what happened and sometimes they don't, but normally they're very docile, and sometimes they just come in to purely just observe our world through another person's eyes, um, and then leave. Who knows where they go, maybe back to a group or another plane. And this is always done on a soul contract level. Walk-ins are not against a person's free will, at least not a soul's free will. It's according to a plan. Walk-ins can be arranged before birth, or some walk-ins also happen
Like a
or
contract.
arranged. Yeah, it's a contract. Some contracts with a walk-in are done after birth. Like if a soul had a contract to fulfill a certain duty, and then they end up in certain situations and circumstances.
Yeah, a lot of
in their
people
life.
will say, I didn't sign up for this. And I'm like, well,
I know.
actually, you did. We all did. We all saw the little, film about our
Yeah.
life, what was going to happen. And we're like, yeah, I think I'm going to do that because I'd love to have that experience. You don't
Sometimes
remember
when-
saying that, but you did sign up for this.
Yeah, sometimes when a walk-in or when a person, any soul really, isn't able to fulfill their original contract, then their soul on a higher level is able to make an agreement with a walk-in of a higher nature, and then
Wow.
they're able to swap out and become someone else. That happens. Some walk-ins happen when someone like gets in a serious car crash and they go to a hospital, and then either maybe they have a near-death experience or they don't. And some walk-ins come in through near-death experiences. Some come in and during hospital stays, and then a person wakes up and just feels like there's someone else. Or some walk-ins also come in and they don't know they're a walk-in, sometimes for weeks or months or even years, and then they realize that there's someone else and awaken to being a walk-in. Mine was a bit more quick, within months.
So we have
But-
about 5 minutes if you want to dig into that.
Okay. Okay, so what I also wanted to cover is my involvement with the Syrian Council specifically and the Scholastic Federation group. I'll get into that. So as I was awakening to being a walk-in, one of the first aspects that I started to become aware of empathically is, this was a few months after the original walk-in, but the presence of a gray alien, not in physical form, but more like, it felt like astral or something coming to visit me. But it was a gray alien aspect, and the way it explained itself is that it was actually part of me that left so that the walk-in can come in And so it was the part of me that left and then essentially walked into a gray body as a transfer with that interspecies group. And that was quite interesting. I still don't know a lot about that gray. I think they're up to other mission work. It took them a while to readjust because it was like a lower being, then switching to a higher density realm. And so they had to get some help too, reawakening to what they are and what they're doing. And then what happened later, well, here, I'll talk about this gray aspect for a little longer. It gave me the name Epsilon Eridani at first, and I looked that up, and it's not the gray's name, it's the name of a solar system. Or a constellation, really, not a solar system. And where they're from is not the main Epsilon Eridani star system that we see. It's within the, I think, M36 star cluster within the lower left part of Epsilon Eridani that we see far, far away. So later on it was around March or April of 2021, I woke up from a dream after a nap, or coming out of a nap. Anyway, I saw something through somebody else's eyes. I'll wrap this up. And what I saw is enemy ships. I was actually standing inside of command center of a ship, looking out windows, looking at what I recognized as enemy ships. And they had golden insignias on them, which I'd never seen before in this life, certainly. But it looked like stylized golden claw marks, essentially. And what I unwrapped, it took a while for me to meditate on this, but I unwrapped the information from that as being another part of the walk-in, a far previous incarnation in the Sirius star system. And that was a moment as a general to the ambassador of Sirius A, when I was on a mission to end the war with the Draco in that system and defend the rest of the solar system. And so we commandeered enemy ships and flew them into the enemy base. Then we used their ships to destroy their base as a gigantic weapon, essentially, but a type of weapon that I wouldn't say is nuclear. It was more of an electrical charge type that we had rigged up things on their ships so that we were able to fly in, detonate the devices, and then basically destroy the ships and the rest of the Draco in that headquarters area. And the Draco are full of nanites anyway, so that got fried. Anyway, what I've uncovered is that Syrian aspect from 2.8 million years ago as being part of the walk-in, which has been relevant, as well as the gray aspect. And it's interesting because my soul seems to have taken this journey, at least in chronological time, that comes from Sirius A, probably Sirius A, Pleiades, and then to this interspecies group.
And I'm just
That's also
attracted to Sirius for some reason.
Well, that's also interesting because after that happened, I started to get a message that was just, I would hear the Syrian Council as a name in my mind at random times when I was relaxed. And
Sharon was asking in our last minutes if you know who Commander Asher is. I don't know if that's a joke or serious question. All right. Well, we are at the end of our time, Troy, so if you would like to tell our listeners where to find you or to ask you questions or to follow up with anything you have said this evening, where to find you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook as Troy Bacon. My picture on the event that you have online. will look the same as, or very similar to the one on my profile. Where else? I don't want to give away personal contact information.
Yeah, you're kind of ageless. Okay, so is there an email if they want to email you, or is that too invasive?
I can give away a network, which is the Seattle UFO Network, spelled S-U-F-O-N, SUFON. It also has a Facebook page, SUFON Seattle UFO Network on Facebook, and we are quite active on that. I'm one of the organizers.
Well, I just want to thank you once more for being my guest this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. It was awesome listening to your experiences and your knowledge and what you have learned thus far through all of these things. But I'm so grateful that you're here. Hopefully we can do this again, because I feel like there's a lot of stuff we haven't covered. But I also want to thank all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's KPNL Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else beyond the Omniverse you are this evening. I had a wonderful time, and tomorrow night we're going to do it again. We're going to go into the paranormal with Patrick Cross from Canada, eh? So you guys don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us.